It's the best way to move forward. We gotta hash out the fights in the metaphysical realm before we are cutting each other's heads with swords because of our beliefs. That makes no sense. That is madness. It is madness to kill each other over beliefs. Let's talk about it. Hide your kids, hide your wife. No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you here. It is January 11th, 2024. Where did 2023 go? Don't ask me because I don't know. It went like water through my fingers. I have no idea where 2023 went. Time is flying. But on a serious note, there's a lot of bad things happening in the world. I don't want to dwell on the bad. I know there's also a lot of good things happening. But the bad can get worse. And I don't want to be naive. I know that all throughout history there have been cycles to civilizations rising and falling, to wars and rumors of wars, and a lot of pockets or bubbles where humanity has proliferated in relative peace. But things are not looking too good for civilization at large at the moment. A lot of geopolitical tensions rising right now. There's some breaking news that Great Britain and the US just launched some attacks to the Houthi in Yemen, allies of Iran, I believe. And well, you have the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. You have the Russia-Ukraine war and a lot of other stuff that are going on that we don't find out about just because it doesn't make it on the mainstream news. And again, I don't want to sound naive, but I believe in miracles. I believe we can do better. I know there are people like Jordan Peterson and friends who have the ARC initiative, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. We need more things like that. We need more people trying to do things that unite humanity and not stuff that brings us apart. And I want to pitch in my 2 cents. I mean, what can a guy with a microphone do on the internet? I don't know, but I guess this is better than doing nothing. Just at least voicing my opinion. Hopefully, will inspire a few to seek higher ground, both spiritually and cognitively and in every aspect of your life. I mean, I'm not the best example, but I hope I can inspire people to go higher. Let me tell you a little bit of my background, of my history. I'm a third culture kid, as they call it. I grew up in a Christian household, a household of the Christian faith. But as I grew older, maybe towards my teens, just as is usual for teenagers to become rebellious against whatever their parents believe. And I still kept within the Christian faith. I went to a 2-year Bible school in Minnesota, studied the Bible for 2 years, and then went back to Bolivia. And sometime after that, I just had too much cognitive dissonance, too many conflicting beliefs in my mind, too many paradoxes that could not be resolved. So there came a point where I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I left the Christian faith. Especially one of the things that triggered my departure from the Christian faith was I did a deep dive, a study on the doctrine of hell, because I was just disturbed by what seemed to be a disproportionate punishment for ignorant humans who live a short span of time, not really knowing what we're doing here, not knowing anything about anything, and being punished for eternity in a lake of fire just seemed a little too harsh. So I did this deep dive on the doctrine of hell. I looked up all the words in the Old and New Testament that get translated into hell. and especially the ones that Jesus uses. And Jesus mostly uses the word Gehenna, which is referred to the Valley of Hinnom. I believe it was southeast or southwest or southeast of Jerusalem. It was just this place where they burnt all their garbage, basically, which Jesus used as a metaphor referring to an everlasting fire or smoke which always goes up, which is perpetually burning against all evil and injustice, a type of hell. And then he uses the word Hades. I thought that was kind of peculiar that Jesus would use a word that's from a Greek mythology. But anyway, I also came to see that a lot of what Christians and Catholics believe about hell is influenced by Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy and other such, literary works per se. So I saw this evolution between the Old and New Testament that led me to reduce my confidence in what I thought the Bible was at that time. And I saw an evolution of, in the Old Testament, it doesn't really mention much of eternal punishment of any sort. Most of the words that get translated into hell are like Sheol. Sheol just means the abode of the dead, or where the dead know not anything. It's just, just the grave in many aspects. And then all of a sudden you come to the New Testament and you start hearing of a lot more eternal punishment and eternal damnation of the soul. And I thought, here's an evolution. I can't really trust my beliefs about the Bible and Christianity anymore. I had too much cognitive dissonance. It was too much. So I let go of my faith in Christ, and I became an extreme agnostic and skeptic. And at first, it was very liberating. It felt like I had been lifted. I was no longer attached to a moral code, to the Judeo-Christian moral code. I was detached from that moral code. I did not feel that pressure to perform. I didn't believe that I was accountable to anyone anymore. Maybe just perhaps to the state, or to people, or to society, because if you do something wrong in society, they'll put you in jail. So you still had that. You needed to act as a moral person within that context. But I didn't have the greater influence of a Judeo-Christian worldview to kind of push their moral assumptions on me, per se. So I felt liberated at first. It was like, wow. But then I kept going down the rabbit hole of skepticism and doubt. I kind of did the journey that Rene Descartes did, where you doubt everything that can be doubted. I went down that rabbit hole of doubt until I came to being itself, to naked being, to just existence itself. And if I could have doubted my own existence, I would have, but I cannot. You cannot doubt your own existence, as it turns out, because you just are. And that's at the place where René Descartes has his famous saying, "I think, therefore I am." And all I could do there was just contemplate my existence, and I am. I exist. And that's where I started my quest for truth, from square one, just from naked being, from the essence of being, from just the fact that I know that I am. And that's one thing you don't need faith for. You don't need a guru on a mountaintop, or a mystic in a cave, or a religious leader, or a scientist in a lab coat to tell you that you are existing, because that's something you know for sure. You don't need faith for that. It's one of the very few things you don't need faith for. But now, pertaining to the nature of existence, of how is reality real? How does it work? By what means is it real? What do we mean when we say that reality is real? When you start getting to making assumptions about the nature of existence, that's where faith comes into play. So I found myself there, at first liberated from my moral assumptions, or from my ontological baggage of the Judeo-Christian faith. But at the same moment, it was like I was in an abyss, staring into the darkness. I no longer had a point of reference, and it's kind of like Nietzsche's death of God. When Nietzsche announces the death of God, of course, it's part of a much larger parable of a madman. It's called the parable of the madman, where Nietzsche talks about a madman who lights a lantern in the morning hours and goes into a marketplace and starts to announce the death of God, and people start laughing at him. But there's this terror sort of in the tone of the madman, where he's saying, how have we killed God? How have we wiped out the horizon? Shouldn't we be falling forwards and backwards in all places? In other words, you lose your point of reference. It's like you are unchained from the sun, or moving away from all suns, as he put it. So just like we got the world and the planets revolving around the sun, if you take the sun out, the planets are going to be sent out into outer space. And that's kind of what it is. That's kind of what it feels like, the death of God. And of course, Nietzsche was an atheist. He didn't really believe in God, but he believed that humans have developed a concept of God, a type of information technology that helped them find coherence in the universe and find a way of organizing society. And if you lose that, you get a whole bunch of chaos and perhaps bloodshed and a bunch of violent conflict in the universe, between the wills of people, between consciences. So anyway, it kind of felt like that. So all of a sudden, I was with my feet planted in midair, in the abyss. So what do you do from there? I started to build a hierarchy of beliefs. So from scratch, I started to believe my worldview, or my belief system. And one of the very first things that you must adopt is a belief of whether the world or reality is solipsistic or a more realist perspective. You can't justify or prove one or disprove the other. I mean, it's stuff that goes beyond the scientific method. You can't probe those things. But solipsism is the belief that perhaps you're the only one in existence, that your mind is the only one, and that everything and everyone else are figments of your imagination. So if you cease to be, everything and everyone else ceases to be. It's a very egocentric type of worldview. And on the other hand, there was realism. And by realism, I mean the belief that other minds are real and that their existence, they exist within their minds like I exist within my mind, independently from me. So or independently from my existence, so that if I die or cease to be, they continue on independently. So we all have minds within the matrix of existence. So I went more towards a realist perspective, and I adopted realism over solipsism, because solipsism is very egocentric and not a very healthy worldview, in my opinion. It's very narcissistic, very egocentric. Whereas realism, it is healthier to believe that other people are real, and that we can empathize with them, that we can reason with people, that we can interact. Because with solipsism, you can have a tendency towards treating people like NPCs, or I borrowed that acronym from gamers. It's called non-playable character. So a non-playable character in a video game is a character with which you can't really interact with that much. It's like a soulless person, a person without a soul, or a zombie just walking around, just a projection. And so I know I have in the past objectified people. I have treated people like NPCs, and I know many people do, especially in war, especially when I mean, people that kill people, they treat people as NPCs, and that's just a very, very dark way of interacting with other humans. Whereas if we adopt a realist perspective, and we understand that we are all part of the same reality, that we all come perhaps from the same essence, we are bound to see ourselves in the other. We are bound to see that the other is just another version of you. And that increases empathy and a desire to understand other people and to have meaningful relationships with other people. But anyway, I started building my hierarchy of beliefs from there. Of course, it's on the basis of faith. I chose realism over solipsism and so on and so forth. And I quickly became an agnostic theist, or perhaps first an agnostic deist, just the belief that there was something that originated the universe. But then I came to the belief that this God interacts with reality, with humans, and perhaps even in a personal way. So I became an agnostic theist, and so on and so forth. To my surprise, I ended up coming back to a faith in Christ, to embracing Jesus. It was a long journey. I'm just telling you just a very, very small points. It was a whole long journey of the quest for truth. Had many stages. I had the stage of seeking out information. I had a psychonaut phase. A psychonaut, someone who explores the mind, oftentimes through altered states of consciousness. I got into a whole bunch of psychedelics and all that jazz. And I was also going out by myself into the jungle to spend time just to meditate by myself. I was doing all kinds of things, just trying to seek out what reality was all about, trying to look to see if there was meaning and try to understand the truth of all things, trying to even trying my hand at trying to come up with a theory of everything. I've studied quantum physics. I went to the Fermi lab in Illinois before the Large Hadron Collider was launched, and I went to that Hadron Collider, the Fermi lab in Illinois, and went down to the monitors. A friend got me in there, and I was able to see the monitors where they see the subatomic particles and the patterns that they form when protons crash against each other. It's just a very fascinating thing. It was a very deep search that I did. So anyway, it all led me back to, like, the evidence led me back to belief in God. And finally, something clicked one day. I will tell you the whole story at perhaps some other time, but I came back to faith in Christ. It was kind of like I saw this conspiracy theorist on Joe Rogan saying that as sure as he believes that Building 7 didn't fall by itself, and he searched out all these other conspiracies, he started looking into God. And this conspiracy theorist came to believe that Jesus Christ is who he said he was based on his research. I kind of did the same thing in a quasi-academic form, but also in a soul search. And many other people have done that too. The guy from Cold Case Christianity, I can't remember his name, Lee Strobel, Dr. Greenleaf from Harvard, C.S. Lewis. Many people who have searched out the life of Christ have become believers, and some even trying to disprove the resurrection of Christ have become believers. So I urge everyone, every true seeker of truth, to really seek out the truth of the matter, because I believe you're in for a rude awakening. What you will find is just going to blow your mind. And I believe I've spoken long enough. That's just a brief introduction, just so you get a little bit of my background, a little bit of where I'm coming from. I'm a person who really values intellectual rigor, logical consistency, of honesty, and having conversations in good faith and goodwill towards seeking truth. I am in the truth-seeking game. Therefore, if you see that I might be delusional in some way, I want you to let me know. And I want to triangulate information with people to try to approximate myself to the truth, to objective reality, as much as possible, because we all live in the subjectivity of our minds. That's why we have so many interpretations of truth. That's why within Christianity there is so many denominations. Everybody is interpreting the canon of scriptures in different ways. They have their own conceptions of God and the attributes of God. And from one person to the next, sometimes there are great chasms of understanding or differences in understanding. So we got to dialogue. It's the best way to move forward. We got to hash out the fights in the metaphysical realm before we are cutting each other's heads with swords because of our beliefs. That makes no sense. That is madness. It is madness to kill each other over beliefs. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Thoughts for a Renaissance, and I wish you all eternal life.